Simon has been a close advisor and friend to the company. He has been a personal mentor for me, and he has been a dear, dear friend throughout everything we've gone through in the company. So without further ado, I am thrilled to be able to invite Simon up here for the first talk, and then don't forget the Q&A.
According to Charlie, I'm 6'4" and 250 pounds. Thank you for that. So I'm going to tell you a story that took place on August 16th, 2002. It was in Afghanistan, and a team of special forces were making their way through a valley, a deep valley in Afghanistan, trying to extricate what the military calls a high-value target. You know, this is one of those black ops, you know, that even to this day we don't know the details about it. But as they were making their way through this valley, they felt uneasy. They felt like they were being watched, and it did not feel good. Up above the clouds was a guy by the name of Johnny Bravo, that's his call sign, flying an A-10, which is a sort of, basically it's a flying tank. It's a sort of low, slow, it offers ground support sort of attack plane. He and his wingman were flying above the heavy clouds that night, just waiting in case somebody needed some help. They're there just to provide ground support in case anything happens. Above the clouds, it was beautiful, and the moon was glowing, and thousands of stars. Down below, it was pitch black because of the heavy clouds that night. And then over his radio came the call. Troops in contact. Troops in contact is what they say when they're in trouble and they need help. Apparently something had erupted down below. But the problem was the conditions were really dangerous. They were in a valley, the weather was bad, so Johnny Bravo says to his wingman, hang out up here, I'm going to go see what's going on. And he points his plane down into the clouds. The clouds of the turbulence thrash him about. And finally, when he pops out beneath the clouds, he's below 1,000 feet above the ground, and he's flying in a valley. Cliffs on both sides. This is only 2002, so we don't have ground-hugging radar on the aircraft, and they're using old Russian maps. And so the only way he can prevent himself from smacking into the side of the walls is to count. He knows his distance and he knows his speed. The only thing he can do is count out loud to ensure that he won't hit the wall. What he's greeted with is a sight like he's never seen before, not in life, not in the movies, nothing. More fire than he's ever seen coming from both sides of the valley, pouring down on our guys at the bottom of the valley. And so he picks one side and he starts to lay down suppressing fire. And he counts as he's flying through the valley. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. And just before he hits the cliff, he pulls a high G turn, goes back up into the clouds, comes back around, and lays down more suppressing fire. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. This goes on a couple more times, and then he runs out of ammunition. His fuel is fine, he's out of ammo. Flies back up to the top of the clouds, tells his wingman, you need to get back down there. The wingman's not sure he can do it. Johnny Bravo says, follow me. The two of them fly back into the cloud. They're flying 3 feet apart from each other, wing to wing. Johnny Bravo counts, and his wingman lays down suppressing fire. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. They pull a high G turn, come around again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. That night, 22 Americans went home alive with 0 casualties. I got to meet Johnny Bravo. He doesn't want a medal. He doesn't want a promotion. He doesn't want a bonus. He doesn't want a reality TV show. He's just doing his job, as he puts it. You think about the rest of us, you know, we do anything nice. We want a bonus and we want recognition and we want something for it, you know. We don't even like to share credit. And here's a guy who risked his life for others. And if you ask him, why would you risk your life for these people? Why would you risk your life for strangers? He gives the same answer that all people who do this kind of thing do. They say, I did it because they would have done it for me. People like Johnny Bravo are not born this way. It's not because of some genetic predisposition that they have this incredible sense to lay themselves on the line so that others may succeed. They are built that way because of the environments in which they work. And this is the remarkable thing about human beings. We are naturally cooperative animals. we are naturally inclined to help each other. It's in our best interest. As social animals living in caveman times, we needed each other. We're not the fastest, and we're certainly not the strongest. And by ourselves you could get by, I guess, a little bit, and we've got good brains and all of that, but together we're simply remarkable, and it's just safer. There are huge advantages to group living. It means that I can go to sleep at night and trust that someone else will look for danger. If I don't trust the people with whom I live or with whom I work, I can't go to sleep at night. And that's not good. And it's the same at work. If I don't trust the people I work with, I can't turn my back. I can't take a risk for fear that someone will stab me in the back or take credit or whatever it is. It's not safe. And this is the reality of the world. The reality of the world is that it is filled with danger. It is uncontrollable, and we have no way to prevent it. In caveman times, it might have been the weather, it might have been the saber-toothed tiger, it might have been a lack of resources. In our modern day, it's your competition, it's the whims of Wall Street, it's the vicissitudes of the economy, it's your competition, it's unknown technologies that come out of nowhere and destroy, business models. These things are constant, and they are unchangeable. And sitting inside all of this danger, what we call the environment, are organizations, us. And when we feel safe inside our organizations, when our organizations choose to build a circle of safety around us, something remarkable happens. We trust each other, and we align, and we cooperate, and we put all of our best efforts together so that together we can face the dangers externally. In organizations where the leadership does not offer a circle of safety, that means not only is there danger outside, which is a constant, but the danger inside, which is a variable, now exists. This is totally within the control of leadership. They can choose to provide a circle of safety or not. And if we fear danger internally, if we fear that if we screw up we're going to get laid off, if we fear that if the company has a bad year, that we might lose our entire livelihood simply because somebody else didn't manage the numbers. If we fear that someone would take would steal our thunder or not help us or kick us when we're down, then we invest all of our time and energy trying to protect ourselves from the dangers inside instead of working together to figure out how we can take on the dangers and seize the opportunities outside. Aesop, of Aesop's fables, summed it up perfectly. He talks about 4 oxen who stand together, tail to tail, with their horns facing out. And so every time the lion tries to attack, he will always receive the horns. But they disagree, and they start fighting with each other, and they separate and go and graze somewhere else. And one by one, the lion eats them all. This is the value of this. And as human beings, we are naturally inclined to seek this out. We want to feel safe. We want to feel that someone else is looking after us. This is what it means to be a human being, and it is born inside of us. Everything about our bodies is purpose-built. Everything. We have eyebrows to catch the sweat so that if we're running for or away from something, the sweat won't drip into our eyes and block our vision so we run into a tree or something. That's why they're there. We have taste buds so that we can taste if food is spoiled, so that we won't poison ourselves. Everything about our bodies is designed to help keep us alive. We also have incentives inside our bodies that are trying to get us to cooperate. Just like in organizations, if we want to direct behavior, we offer people an incentive. If you achieve a goal, we will give you a bonus, right? And so everybody works to achieve that goal. It's the exact same thing inside our bodies. If you've ever had a feeling of happiness or joy or pride or status or fulfillment or love or friendship or trust or loyalty, if you've ever had any of these feelings, they are chemically produced feelings. They are chemicals inside our bodies that are attempting to reinforce behaviors that are in our best interest. I will generically call them all the feelings of happiness. And there are 4 basic chemicals inside our bodies that basically control anything that we would call happiness. They are endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. EDSO. Let me tell you about them. Endorphins have one purpose and one purpose only: to mask physical pain. That's it. That's all they do. When you go to the gym or you go for a run and you push your body further than you've ever pushed it, feels good. That's endorphins, making you feel good when we push ourselves, You know, and at the end of our workout, at the end of our run, we still feel fantastic. We call it the endorphin rush, or runner's high, right? And then an hour later, we're in pain for damage we caused to our muscles an hour before, right? The reason the body has this is because, like I said before, we're neither the strongest nor the fastest animals, and yet we still have to eat and we still have to protect ourselves. This animal is built for endurance. We can track an animal, we can hunt, we can go out gathering for food for hours and hours and hours and miles and miles and miles, and it feels great. And if we do catch something, we need to bring it home and we're exhausted or we're tired or maybe we're injured, we persevere and we push through until we come home. We are built for that purpose. We are built for that purpose. And it feels good, which means we keep going. And because it feels good, it means we'll volunteer to do it again. I had such a good time hunting yesterday. I'll go today as well. It provides that we'll keep going and keep providing for each other. But in our modern day and age of supermarkets and cars, we don't really need endorphins for survival much anymore. And pretty much the only way you get an endorphin rush is from heavy exercise. That's pretty much it. By the way, that's why laughing feels good. Because when we laugh, we're actually convulsing our internal organs, and endorphins are released to mask that pain. And we've all been to the point where we're laughing so much it actually hurts, and we say to somebody, stop, stop, it hurts. It's because the endorphins have run out. That's why laughing feels good. Dopamine. Dopamine is the feeling you get when you find something you're looking for, or you accomplish a goal you set out to accomplish. So you know when you make your to-do list and you check something off the list, how good that feels? That's dopamine, right? I was out running errands and I had my little list of things I had to do that day. And as I walked past one store, I remembered I had to do something that I forgot to write on my list. And seeing the store reminded me. So I went in and did what I had to do. I came out, wrote it on the list, and then crossed it out. Just to get the dopamine. I just wanted the dopamine hit, right? The caveman reason why we have dopamine is so that we'll get things done, so that we'll eat. You get a dopamine rush when you eat. That's why we enjoy eating, right? It's not just that it tastes good, it gives you a feeling of good. And so we want to repeat the behavior that keeps us fed, right? So in caveman times, when you went out for a wander and you happen to see a little apple tree way off in the distance, you get a little shot of dopamine. And it keeps us focused on achieving our goals. And so we stay focused on the apple tree and we start moving towards it. Otherwise, we don't get distracted, right? And as we get closer, the apple tree gets a little bigger. We get another little shot of dopamine because we feel like we're making progress. And as it gets a little bigger, we feel like we're making more progress. Another little shot of dopamine until we finally get to the tree and we're like, yes, right? Big shot of dopamine, feels great. This is why we're always told that you have to write down your goals, that your goals must be tangible. This is true. This is the science behind it. We have to be able to see what we're setting out to achieve, otherwise we can't achieve it. Nobody can tell you that we want to set our sights on being the most respected company in the world. I don't even know what that looks like. You know, who based on what metric? Respected by whom? Your mother? Your team? Your clients? Your customers? Who? What? It's impossible to imagine. So how can you set your sights on building something that you can't see? It doesn't work. The science doesn't provide for it. And eventually, we feel like we're spinning our wheels, and no matter how hard we work, eventually we feel like this is not worth it and we don't get job satisfaction. That's why they call it vision. We ask CEOs to have vision, so you can see it. Vision in your mind's eye. Martin Luther King had a dream that one day, little black kids and little white kids would be on the playground holding hands together. We can all imagine that. We can see that. We can get our little shot of dopamine, and we can set our sights and cooperate and invest all of our efforts to get there. Metrics are the things that tell us that we're making progress, that give us more little shots that say, keep going, keep going, keep going. It's not the metric itself. It has nothing to do with how many steps we're taking. Congratulations, you have a goal of taking 10 steps today, and you beat your metric by shooting 12, by stepping 12. In what direction? Metrics are only valuable when we know where they're taking us. And dopamine will get us there. It makes us feel good when we accomplish things we're setting out to accomplish. That's what dopamine is for, to get things done. We are performance animals. We're brilliant at it when we can see what we're heading out for and when we want it. Right? This is why we like shopping, by the way. This is why we like eBay and Google. We love looking for things. When they come over, we're like, right? You don't need another little, frog for your frog collection. We don't need to collect stamps or coins or whatever you collect, Pokemon. Do they even do those anymore? The point is it feels good to add things to our collection because we get dopamine hits every time we do. That's why we feel we can't live without this. I will pay anything to get it. Dopamine. But dopamine comes with a warning. It is highly, highly, highly addictive. Here are some other things that release dopamine. Alcohol, nicotine, gambling, your cell phone, right? When you go gambling, we know what the tree looks like. 3 sevens means you get a jackpot. And so we pull, and we put money in and we pull. And we get 1 7. And we're like, feels like we're getting close, pull again. Feels like oh, just miss it this time, keep pulling. We feel like we're getting close, and so we keep going and going and going. And we become addicted to the dopamine. The problem is there's no benefit for us at the end. We're just wasting resources and destroying relationships. That's what happens in all addictions. We waste resources and destroy relationships just so we can get the dopamine hit. Right? It's the same with your cell phone, right? They say that if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is crave a drink, you might be an alcoholic. If you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is check your phone before you even get out of bed, you might be an addict. Yes, we all hate email. It's absolutely true. What we love is the bing, the buzz, the flash, and the beep. Oh my God, it feels so good. Right? It feels so good. This is why when we're driving our cars and the thing goes beep, we can't wait 10 minutes to look at what it is. We have to look at it now. It's a craving. It's dopamine. Gotta have it. And then we look and it says, do you want to have lunch next Thursday? And we can't wait 10 minutes to wherever we're going to reply. We have to do it now. Have to. We want the dopamine. Because if we send it out, we'll get another one. Yeah, that's why we sit at our desks and work, and then we just stop and hit refresh a few times on our email. Don't worry, it'll let you know if something comes in, but we have to go check. Right? If you walk from room to room in your own home carrying your phone with you, you might be an addict. Right? And for all you Gen Ys who say, oh, we grew up like this and we're more adapted to technology and we're better at multitasking, then why do you keep crashing your cars while you're texting? You're not better at multitasking, you're better at being distracted. Right? The statistics are alarming. Do you know that in just 10 years, the diagnosed cases of ADD and ADHD have increased 60%. Okay? ADD and ADHD is a frontal lobe disorder. I cannot imagine out of nowhere that there's an entire generation growing up with a frontal lobe disorder. I don't, they get born and we smack them in the head with a stick. I don't know, it's just not, doesn't make sense. What's happening is all the symptoms of a dopamine addiction to our telephones or to our social media mimic the symptoms of ADHD. Distractibility, can't focus, can't get things done. It's all this, in other words, they're not ADHD, it's a misdiagnosis. It's an addiction to dopamine. Right? Any organization that only uses dopamine-driven incentives, in other words, if you achieve the goal, we'll give you a bonus. Right? They can get people addicted to dopamine. We can actually become addicted to performance inside our organizations if that's our only means of reward. Gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it, get out of my way. And we know, the science proves it, that people who are driven by this are more likely to cheat as well, because they're so driven to get their dopamine, they'll stop at nothing and stab anybody in the back. That's why we have these other two chemicals. These are the selfish chemicals. You don't need anyone's help to feel these kinds of happiness. Go for a run, get through your checklist, achieve your goals, you're good to go. These are the selfless chemicals. These you cannot get alone. These are the ones that balance these off and make us care about each other. The first one is serotonin. Serotonin is the leadership chemical. Serotonin is the feeling of pride or status. This is why events like this are very important. As social animals, we need to know that those in our tribe, those in our group, value us. This is why when we give public recognition to each other, it feels good. This is why we have commencement ceremonies at graduation. Right? For you to graduate college, all you need to do is fulfill your minimum requirements, collect enough credits, and you graduate. I mean, that's all it requires. It's just a formula. They could simply send you an email that says, congratulations, you've fulfilled all your requirements for graduation, for matriculation. Enclosed, please find a PDF of your diploma to print out. You know, P.S. magna cum laude. It wouldn't feel so good because there's no public recognition. And so what we do is we have a big ceremony, and we invite all our family and friends, all of our teachers, everybody who supported us, and we publicly acknowledge that we have achieved something thanks to the support of all these people. And so when a young college graduate walks up on stage and she goes and takes her diploma, at the exact moment she takes that diploma, serotonin oozes through her body and she feels proud, she feels her status rise, and she feels full of confidence, because that's one of the things serotonin gives you. Lots of self-confidence. And she walks off stage feeling good. And at the exact same moment that she feels that pride, her parents sitting in the audience also feel proud. What serotonin is attempting to do is reinforce the relationship between parent and child, coach and player, boss and employee, caregiver and the one being cared for. And when we have that relationship, we are grateful to each other for what they are doing. When people win an Oscar, the first thing they do is thank their parents or thank God. They thank whoever they think is looking out for them that helped them achieve this great thing. If you give an award to a player, the first thing they do is thank their coach. If you give the award to their coach, the first thing they do is they say, I couldn't have done it without my team. It's reinforcing and sharing the good feeling so that the caregivers will sacrifice, and so that those being cared for will rise up and make those who sacrifice for us proud and make them feel that their sacrifice was worth it. We can't do it over video conference. It doesn't work. We can't do it over email. It doesn't work. It has to be like this. It has to be live and in person, because that's what we are. We are social animals. But the problem is, in our modern day and age, like all the chemicals, we can trick the system. We can short-circuit the system. Just as you can get dopamine from gambling or smoking or drinking or, simply achieving your goals, as opposed to looking for food and getting stuff done and building shelters, so too can we get the feeling of pride and status in ways that are actually not beneficial to us. We live in a materialistic society. So we're the alphas, the dominant ones in our society, right? Used to be judged by physical strength. In our modern day and age, it's materialism. That's why conspicuous displays of wealth raise somebody's status. That's why the logos are on the outside, because it actually feels good. We want that double C Chanel when you put your Chanel bag on. You actually feel better. And you got the red stripe of your Prada glasses on the outside, not the inside. Right? And you put on your Pradas, you're like, woo, and you go out, and you feel good, and you pick up somebody, you pick up a cute girl because you feel good, right? That's why we call them status symbols. That would be biologically accurate. The problem is we've tricked the system, you see, because we're giving these conspicuous displays of wealth in an attempt to raise our status to show that we're successful, but there was no relationship that was born as a result. We didn't have to do anything for anyone and nobody to do anything for us. We gamed the system. And that's why the feeling doesn't last. That's why no matter how much material success we achieve, the feeling goes away and we feel we need to get more and more and more and more. And yet when you have strong relationships where it's love and care, you don't have that problem because the serotonin is real, not gamed. Now I call it the leadership chemical. There's a history of leaders. Why do we have leaders? It's very practical. We used to live in environments, in societies of communities of about 100 to 150 people, right? It presents a very practical problem. When someone brings home food, a big carcass dumped on the ground, we all rush in to eat, right? Now the problem is, if you're built like a linebacker, you will shove your way to the front of the line. If you're the creative one of the family, you get an elbow in the face. This is not a very good system when group living is important to our survival, because odds are very high that while the linebacker's gone to sleep, the guy who got an elbow in the face, probably not that inclined to alert him to danger in the middle of the night, right? Not a good system. And so we evolved into hierarchical animals. We're constantly assessing each other as to who are the dominants in our groups. Who are the alphas? It's nothing to do with physical strength usually, unless that's the criteria by which your society judges dominance. And we've all been there. If you've ever been introduced to somebody and you're nervous, you're not the alpha. But we've all been in the circumstance where we've been introduced to somebody and we can sense that they're nervous meeting us, you're the alpha. Right? It's not a constant, it's a variable depending on the situation you're in. But the point is that we naturally, once we assess who our alphas are, who the dominants are in our society, we voluntarily step back and allow them to eat first. We give them first choice of meat, and we give them first choice of mate. Right? And so the alphas will get to eat first, they get all the best cuts of meat. We don't get the best cuts of meat, but we do get to eat eventually, and we don't get an elbow in the face. It's a good system, happy to look out for danger for you. Right? It works much, much better. And as a result of all these perks and all this love and adoration, they get filled with serotonin, and they walk around like this because they're the alphas, and it feels good. Right? This is why we're all vying to raise our status all the time, is because you get perks, because people will naturally step aside for you. To this day, we are perfectly comfortable with somebody more senior than us getting a bigger salary than us, even if we think the guy's an idiot. We are not offended by the fact that they make more money because they're more senior. No problem. We have no problem with somebody more senior than us getting a better office or a nicer parking space. We have no issue with the celebrity getting the best table in the restaurant or the dot-com millionaire dating the model. Like, it does not offend us. We're perfectly okay with it. In fact, we expect it. Can you imagine if the President of the United States had to carry his own luggage? We'd be offended. He's the President. Can't we get someone to carry his luggage? I will do it. It would be an honor. Because when we view someone as our alpha and we pay them respect, we're actually willing to do quite menial labor because it's an honor. I'll hold the door open for you. Let me, please let me. It would literally be an honor. It's literally carrying a president's luggage. Check it out. Right? It's literally an honor. There are huge perks that go with being the alpha. Society will just keep giving you stuff and make you feel good. But it doesn't come for free. The group is not stupid. Right? We're fully aware that that guy is actually stronger than us, or smarter than us, or whatever. We're fully aware that he's better fed and better looked after because of all the perks he got. And we're fully aware that we've showered him with respect and love and given him so much serotonin that his confidence is through the roof. And we do that so that when danger threatens the tribe, we expect that the leader, the guy who's actually stronger, better fed, and full of confidence, rushes towards the danger to protect us. That's the cost of leadership. The cost of leadership is self-interest. And for those who are not willing to pay that price, you do not deserve the perks of leadership. This is why we are so viscerally offended by some of the CEOs of the investment banks who have such ridiculously disproportionately high salaries. It has nothing to do with the money. It has to do with the fact that they have violated a deeply ingrained social contract. We know that they did not sacrifice themselves for their people to get that money. In fact, we know that sometimes they sacrifice their people to get the money. And that's what offends us. It's not the money. It's the failure to uphold the very definition of what it means to be a leader. If I told you we're going to give a $100 million bonus to Nelson Mandela, does anybody have a problem with that? Nope. Let's give a $250 million bonus to Mother Teresa. Fine. It's not the numbers. It's the failure to uphold the very basics of what it means to be a leader, to protect those in my group, to look after them, to offer them a circle of safety. That's the job. The fourth chemical is called oxytocin. Oxytocin is my favorite chemical. It is the feeling of love and trust. It's all the warm and fuzzies, rainbows and unicorns. It's the reason we love to spend time with our friends, even if we don't do anything. We can sit on the couch and watch TV with them, and yet we had a great time. Right? It's that amazingly good feeling that we get when we're around people we trust, people that we know would look out for us. This is what vulnerability means, right? Vulnerability means I'd be willing to put myself in a position of danger, turn my back, and trust that you will watch out for me. That's what it means. And then we get oxytocin, right? There are many ways you can get oxytocin. One way you can get it is with physical contact. Hugging someone feels really, really good, right? Feels good, and so we do it. touch, physical touch is a big part of it. Right? I actually, I was given a tour of an office, and while we were there, one of the employees fell off his chair and had a diabetic seizure. And a whole bunch of us sort of just rushed in to help. And I happened to notice, while we were waiting for the paramedics to arrive, that his colleague, he was out cold, he was not aware of anything that was going on. But I happened to notice one of his colleagues was bent down, rubbing his arm, just touching him. We do this naturally. We touch people when they're in pain. Right? In other words, we know that physical touch does something remarkable to us, because not only does oxytocin feel good and create feelings of trust and love, it actually boosts our immune systems, it actually makes us healthy, it actually keeps us alive. It's really great stuff, right? It's really phenomenal stuff, right? And so we touch because it feels good and it probably helps. If you're going to do a deal with someone, let's say we're going to do a business deal together, and we get together to sign the contract, and you say, oh my God, I'm so excited to sign it, I'm so excited to sign it, and you stick out your hand to shake their hand, and they go, no, I don't need to shake your hand, let's just sign the contract, we're really excited to do business with you. And you say, great, let's shake on it then. They go, no, I'm good, let's just sign the contract. Right? Business is not rational, it's not about the terms of an agreement. Business is about human relationships, and it's about establishing trust. So sure, you make the business deal, but you haven't made the human deal yet. Their refusal to simply shake your hand, to simply create physical contact, to exchange the chemical of trust, means one of two things will happen. You will either go into the deal with doubt, or you'll actually scuttle the whole deal, simply because they refuse to touch. Here's another way you can get oxytocin. Acts of human kindness. An act of human kindness, an act of generosity, is defined as giving your time and energy to someone with no expectation of anything in return. You cannot do it with money. Right? If I told you that before I came here this morning I gave $1,000 to charity, what would you think? You're like, good for you. What do you want, a medal? Right? But if I told you that last weekend I donated half a Saturday and I went and painted schools in the inner city, then what would you think of me? Like, cool, nice, I should do more, right? The value of my labor, worth a lot less than $1,000. That $1,000 could have hired many more people to hire, but as human beings, we put a premium on those who give time for the very simple reason is it's a non-redeemable commodity. You waste money, you make more money. Time, once it's spent, it's gone. Some of you are sitting in this room right now going, I will never get this time back. You won't. Sorry. Right? Nothing I can do. Right? That's the point. And so when people give us their time, we feel good towards them. We feel really sort of grateful to them. That's why a CEO or a leader who sends tons and tons of emails saying, how are you? I was worried about you, means nothing to the one who gets up from their desk, walks over to your cube, and goes, good job today. And you go, that's it? And they go, mm-hmm. And they go back to their desk because it took time and energy to do it. If I come to your house for dinner, you make me a lovely dinner, you're a wonderful host. The next day I send you a wonderful email saying, thank you so much, what a wonderful time I had. Or 3 days later, you receive a handwritten note from me with the exact same words that were in the email. Which one makes you feel better? The handwritten note. The sentiment was the same, the intent was the same, the words were the same. The difference is, it took me a little more time and energy and it made you feel better. I was talking to some executives from an oil company, and they were telling me how much they cared that their employees enjoy going to work, that their employees are fulfilled by work. Right? And I said, no, you don't. And they said, no, we do. We really do. I said, no, you don't. They said, yeah, we do. They said, no, we don't. You can see how this went. And they finally said, what are you thinking? I said, I bet that you hired some high-priced consultancy to send out some web survey to find out if they're fulfilled at work. To which they said, well, we didn't hire a consultancy. Right? So I said to them, so it's like this, right? Let's say you send your son an email. Dear son, it's very important to me that you feel like a valuable member of this family. Please be candid about what your mother and I can do better so that you'll feel a part of this family. Love, Dad. Or you go into his room, you sit on his bed, and you say, son, it's really important to your mom and I that you feel like you're a valuable member of this family. Please tell me candidly what you think your mom and I can do better because we want you to feel a part of this family. Which one do you think the son feels loved. The sentiment was the same, the words were the same, the intent was the same. The only difference was it took more time and energy to do it. And this is why so many companies do not bother building a circle of safety around their people, because it's hard work. And it takes time and it takes effort. It's so much easier to just send an email. It's just so much quicker. It's so much easier to just pay somebody else to do a survey. That's why we do it. It's quicker. It's easier. This is hard work, which is why it's valuable. The problem is in so many of our organizations today, we do not provide a circle of safety, and there's an unbalance of chemicals in the system. There's too much dopamine and not enough serotonin and oxytocin. And we're driven to achieve, and we're so good at it, and yet we forget that we need to feel safe. We need it biologically. Because there's one more chemical I haven't told you about. The big C. Cortisol. Cortisol is the feeling of stress and anxiety. Anytime you feel stress or anxiety, that is cortisol seeping through your veins. All social mammals have cortisol. Do you know when you see a documentary and you see gazelles sort of grazing on the plain, and one of them thinks they hear a rustle in the high grass, and so they go, that's cortisol. Cortisol is the first part of the fight or flight response that we have, right? It wants only to keep us alive, and it makes us paranoid. That's what it does. When we have cortisol in our veins, not only do we feel stress, all our muscles tighten up, glucose goes into our muscles, preparing us for fight or flight, our heart rate starts to speed up, preparing us in case we need to do something, all of our senses become really heightened, and we become paranoid, looking for what we feel the threat is to us, right? That's why when you wake up in the middle of the night because you heard a bump, what's the first thing you do? Honey, wake up! Right? They didn't hear the bump, and yet they'll go, because that's what happens. When one person in the group has cortisol, we all get crazy, right? So that one gazelle goes, and all the other gazelle go, and now you have all the gazelle looking for danger. Good system. One of the gazelles that didn't hear the rustle sees the lion, runs. They all run. They all live another day. Good system. The problem is it's not supposed to stay in our systems. Cortisol is supposed to go in and leave. That's why when you're woken up by that bump in the night, and you go and it was nothing, it was some squirrel or something, and then you go, and you wait for the cortisol to leave, you wait for your heart rate to go back down, you relax, and you go about your day. However, if you work in an organization where there's no circle of safety, or if the circle of safety has only been placed around the senior executives and you're not in it, you have paranoia every single day. What if we have bad numbers and I get laid off? Cortisol. Hold on, he wants my job and he's going to stab me in the back. Cortisol. And you have all this underlying cortisol that makes us stressed and anxious, which inherently, as the chemical is supposed to do, makes us tense, makes us paranoid, makes us self-interested. It's only trying to keep us alive. Literally paranoid. Why is he doing that? I shouldn't have spoken up in that meeting. I know I shouldn't have. That's what we start to do. We go crazy trying to figure out where the feeling is coming from. Right? This is not good. Because you see, cortisol, to heighten all of our senses and to get all that tension, it has to turn off non-essential systems. So for example, when cortisol seeps through your body, growth stops. You don't need your fingernails to grow in that moment. You don't need it. So for that moment, it stops. You know what else stops in that moment? Cortisol shuts down your immune system. Because you don't need it in that moment. Cortisol is also an oxytocin inhibitor, which means when we live in a society or if we work in a company where there's no circle of safety and we have stress on a daily basis and we fear our managers and our bosses rather than love them, we have cortisol in our body every single day, and we literally will have trouble being empathetic, and we will literally have trouble forming trust because cortisol inhibits it. It prevents it from happening. And worse, because it's screwing with our immune system, it is hurting us. In the United States today, we have dramatically increasing rates of heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers. It's not partially hydrogenated oils. It's our jobs. It's killing us. And it gets worse. Studies show that people who don't love their jobs, people who are anxious when they come home from work, right? It has an impact on their children. People who work late, it has negligible to no impact on the raising of their children. You may feel guilty as a parent, but it actually doesn't affect your kids. However, if you don't love your jobs, if you don't feel safe at work and you come home, your kids are more likely to be bullies. We have a bullying epidemic in America right now, where young kids are killing themselves because of the bullying they get at home. The bullying they get at school, I mean. It's not the jobs, it's not the parents, and it's not the schools, it's the jobs. Our jobs are literally killing our children. That's the importance. That's the responsibility of every leader to provide a circle of safety around their people. It actually protects children. Almost every single school shooting that we've had lately has been committed by somebody who's Gen Y. Except for only a few cases, none of them had any pre-documented cases of mental disorder. Clearly they were mentally incapacitated at the time of the shooting, but the question is what got them to that point. We are social animals, and the thing that destroys us is loneliness. Nobody kills themselves when they're hungry. We kill ourselves when we're lonely. In every single one of these school shootings, these young people were relied on the internet for their positive reinforcement of their friendships. They did not feel loved. They were ostracized by their community. And in the case of Sandy Hook, the reason he went and shut up a school and killed those children is because he believed his mother, who was a substitute teacher at the school, loved the children more than she loved him. He attacked who he believed were the victims of his feeling of loneliness. Suicide and homicide are both antisocial behavior, and they only happen when we no longer feel safe anymore, the danger becomes overwhelming, and we crack, and we do something that is counter to our best interest. So how do we fix it? Almost every single alcoholic on the planet started drinking when they were teenagers. And the reason is because when we're very young, we rely on the approval of our parents. All we care is about the approval of our parents. That's all we want. Then by the time you hit adolescence, you start to change. We start to need the approval of our peers, right? And that lasts for the rest of our lives. Otherwise, we would never be able to form trust outside of our family, right? And so, much to the dismay of the parents, now the teenagers want the approval of their peers, maybe even more than the approval of their parents, right? It's also a time in our lives when we're supposed to learn to trust each other. We're supposed to learn to rely on our peers, to rely on other people when we are struggling. But for some people, they discover alcohol, and for some people, when they're stressed out, they realize that the numbing effects of the dopamine can help them overcome their feelings of anxiety when they're young, and unfortunately, they form that relationship with the alcohol and not with the person, and so that lasts for the rest of their lives. And every alcoholic drinks for the same three reasons: social stress, career stress, money stress. That's it. And when they feel the stress, they rely on the alcohol to help them overcome the stress instead of a human being. And like all addictions, we waste resources and destroy relationships in our attempt to feel good. Right? Now, we all know the first step of the 12-step program, right? Admit you have a problem. Sometimes we joke about it, right? Admit you have a problem. But do any of you know the 12th step? Don't admit it. You're not supposed to let me know. It's supposed to be anonymous. The 12th step. The studies are remarkable. The alcoholics who complete all 11 steps but do not complete the 12th step will start drinking again. The alcoholics who complete the 12th step will beat the disease. What is the 12th step? The 12th step is the commitment to help another alcoholic. Service. Service beats dopamine. Helping someone overcome the challenge that you yourself are challenged with helps you get over that addiction to dopamine. It helps you get over the imbalance of the chemical versus the other chemicals. Looking after each other has miraculous effects on our bodies. It makes us healthier, it makes us live longer, it makes us feel better, and after all, it keeps the system in balance. Looking after each other at work, working to maintain a strong circle of safety is the most valuable thing we can do for ourselves. keeps us healthy, keeps us alive, and keeps us happy. It actually feels good to do things for somebody else. And by doing things for somebody else, again, remember the definition. It's the commitment of time and energy with no expectation of anything in return. We cannot give it to everyone. We cannot give it to everyone, so we have to be discerning. If we only gave 2 minutes to everybody, we would never form any close relationships and we'd never build that circle of safety. And so we have to be discerning who we give it to, and we give it to people who we believe would give back to the group. When you join the Marine Corps, on your first day, when you're standing in Paris Island or San Diego, and you're standing there on the yellow footprints with your thumbs pointed down the seam of your pants as they yelled at you to do, you're afraid and you're scared and you wonder what you got yourself into. And for the first two weeks or so, recruits are preoccupied with themselves, making themselves look good, showing up and showing the drill instructor that I'm good, trying to compete with all the other recruits. That's what happens. Self-interest when we feel lonely and isolated and insecure. But the Marines keep putting them in positions where they cannot do things by themselves, that they have to rely on each other to solve problems. And what starts to happen after about 2 weeks is they start cheering for each other out of the blue. And then by the end of 13 weeks, you see something amazing. I went to Paris Island and I watched the Marines, they were still recruits, watching the recruits go through something called the Crucible, which, if memory serves, is a 56-hour exercise of which you're only allowed a total of 3 meals and 8 hours of sleep of the whole time. I think that's what it is. Maybe it's even 4 hours of sleep. That's it. They're tired, they're exhausted, they're pushed the entire time. And you see amazing things happen. You see a squad of 4 recruits crawling through the sand under barbed wire, and one of them's tired, and one of them is exhausted, and one of them falls back. If this was the first 2 weeks, they would rush ahead and somebody would try and win. But strangely enough, nobody told them to do it. Exposing themselves to much greater danger, they turn around, they go back, they grab the guy's webbing, and they drag him through it. They look after each other. And if you ask them, why did you put yourself in greater danger so that you could pull him through, they all say the same thing. Because he would have done it for me. In the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. We have it backwards. And I watched them as they were graduating. They're becoming Marines. At the end of this 56 hours, they go immediately into the graduation. They're still dirty and covered in mud and exhausted and tired. They stand there, and nobody tells them to get ready. They all start preparing their uniforms, their filthy uniforms. They get them straight, and you start to see Marines helping each other. They don't say, hey, your collar's screwed up. They just fix it. It becomes a community. It becomes a circle of safety. And because they have that circle of safety, they are better equipped and better prepared to face the dangers outside because they don't fear any dangers inside. The more fear we have inside the organizations, the more time and energy we'll invest to protect ourselves from our own peers. We will compete against each other as opposed to competing with each other. The goal is to look after each other. The goal is to look after each other. The goal, if you want to go to work and feel safe, you have a responsibility to make sure that others feel safe. And if you do that, you become a leader. Thanks very much.